Ever feel like you're watching this like global game of chess and nobody told you the rules?
Yeah.
Well, today we're breaking down one very tricky match.
Yeah.
U.S.-Iran relations.
Oh, boy.
It's a big one, right? So many of you sent in this article, Iran, the U.S. installed diplomacy.
Right.
So we're going to dive deep into this one.
Yeah.
Figure out why talks between these two just keep hitting a wall.
Yeah, it's complicated, right? I mean, you got all these major players.
Right. You've got President Pezeshkian on the Iranian side.
Right. And of course, you can't forget the Supreme Leader, Khamenei.
Right. And then obviously the U.S. is in the mix trying to figure this all out.
Right. And from the article, you can see Pezeshkian seems like he might be open to talking, but Khamenei,
He is not having it.
not at all. I mean, just look at how much influence Khamenei has over Iranian politics.
Right.
You can tell he just doesn't trust the U.S., especially after the 2015 nuclear deal fell apart.
Right.
I mean, the Trump administration just walked away from that agreement. So from Khamenei's perspective, why should this time be any different?
Right. It does make you think, like, who can blame him?
Yeah.
Like, the article even quotes Pezeshkian saying he was initially all for talking, but once Khamenei made it clear where he stood,
Yeah.
Pezeshkian said, quote, "We must adjust ourselves accordingly and find the right path within that framework."
Wow.
Like, talk about a power move.
Yeah, that's Khamenei exerting his influence right there.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, too, because Iran's position in the world has changed a lot, even since 2015.
Oh, absolutely. Back then, they were under so much pressure fighting ISIS in Iraq, trying to keep the Assad regime going in Syria.
Right.
Supporting the Houthis in Yemen, they were stretched thin.
Right.
They needed some relief, and that made them more open to talks.
Right now, though, it's a whole different game.
Completely different game.
Iran's gotten stronger in Iraq, especially after the U.S. pulled out.
Yeah.
They've also increased their influence in Yemen, and they've gotten cozy with Russia and China, joining these economic groups like BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and the SKO.
Shanghai Cooperation Organization.
Exactly. They're not isolated anymore.
Not even close.
But it hasn't been all sunshine and roses, right?
Oh, of course not. They've had some setbacks. The fall of the Assad regime,
Right.
Hezbollah's weakening in Lebanon. Those are blows for sure.
Right. So it seems like President Pezeshkian is in a tough spot.
Oh, he's walking a tightrope for sure. He seems to see the value of talking. But at the end of the day, he has to answer to Khamenei.
He does. And the article really highlights this internal struggle.
Yeah.
On one hand, you have Pezeshkian saying, quote, the U.S. negotiators are not after negotiations. They want us to be submissive to them, but we won't be made submissive.
Strong words.
Strong words. He wants to negotiate, but only if Iran comes from a position of strength.
Right.
But then you have to wonder, how much strength can he really project when Khamenei is the one calling the shots?
Ooh, that's the big question, isn't it?
It is. And the stalemate could have serious consequences for how Iran approaches things moving forward.
Absolutely. I mean, do they just go all in with Russia and China?
Right.
Double down on their support for groups like Hezbollah, even after those setbacks?
Right.
And how does the U.S. respond? Do they keep up the pressure?
So many what-ifs.
It's enough to make your head spin, right?
Yeah. But I think it's important to consider these different scenarios. If diplomacy is truly off the table, where does that leave both sides?
Yeah.
Is there any middle ground, or are we just headed for more tension?
More conflict.
Maybe even conflict.
These are tough questions to grapple with.
They are.
But even just getting a handle on what's driving each side, what their motivations are, that's a good first step towards understanding this whole situation.
Absolutely.
And that's why deep dives like this are so important.
Right.
They give us the context we need to come to our own conclusions about what might happen next. So what do you think? What's the most likely path forward for the U.S. and Iran?
Right. It's like we've laid out all the chess pieces, but now it's up to us to try and predict the next move.
Exactly.
And that's what makes international relations so fascinating.
And a little bit scary.
And honestly, yeah, a little bit unnerving.
Yeah, for sure.
But hey, that's the world we live in.
That it is.
Right. Full of complexities and uncertainties.
Absolutely. But that's what keeps things interesting, right?
It does. You got to stay on your toes.
You do.
Always be ready for the unexpected.
That's the key.
And that's a wrap on another deep dive.
Until next time.